Hello, first graders. Welcome back to Social Studies. This is Mrs. Miller here with Lesson 3, where we will be talking about different family members. So let's start out by reading this book called Henry and Mudge in the Family Trees. It's a story by Cynthia Ryland. Pictures by Susie Stevenson. The Invitation. One day, Henry and Henry's dog, Mudge, and Henry's parents were sitting on the porch when a letter came. So as we read, let's see if we can keep track of all of the different relatives that Henry and Mudge have. So far there's Henry, there's his dog, Mudge, and Henry's parents, his mom and dad. The envelope said invitation. Henry loved invitations. Mudge loved them too, because they usually meant cake. Hurry, Dad, open it, said Henry. Henry's father opened the envelope. It's a family reunion, said Henry's father, at Cousin Annie's house. All right, so now we're meeting a new character, Cousin Annie. Do you have any cousins in your family? Thumbs up if you do. I have a lot of cousins in my family. Yay, shouted Henry. He liked Cousin Annie a lot. Mudge wagged. He liked Annie too. She always wipes his nose with hankies. You'll meet a lot of new relatives, Henry, said Henry's mother. Great, said Henry. And you'll hear a lot of good stories, she said. Great, said Henry. And you'll get a million sloppy kisses, said his father. Henry looked at Mudge. Uh-oh, Henry said. I guess he doesn't like the idea of getting a million sloppy kisses. Look at the title of this next chapter, Sloppy Kisses. On the day of the reunion, Henry's family drove to Annie's house. Henry brought a new frisbee for Annie, a tennis ball for Mudge, and a paper towel for himself for sloppy kisses. When they got to Annie's house, people were everywhere. In the yard, on the porch, all through the house. And a few were even in the trees. This looks like a pretty big family reunion. Henry suddenly felt nervous. So many relatives. What would they say? Would they be nice? Would they be friendly? Would they understand dog drool? Henry and Mudge got out of the car. Henry felt very shy. Suddenly, Annie saw him from up in a tree. Hi, Henry, Annie called. Hi, Mudge. Mudge? A relative on a swing said. Mudge? A relative on the porch said. Mudge? Said somebody in the house. Hey, everybody, shouted Aunt Sally from another tree. It's Mudge. So now we've met another relative, Aunt Sally. And a million relatives came running with a million sloppy kisses, and all of them for Mudge. Henry smiled proudly. Mudge wagged and wagged and wagged. No one loved a sloppy kiss better than Mudge. He was made for family reunions. The best family. Henry's relatives were fun. They danced, they sang, they laughed, big belly laughs. And so many cousins. Cousin Jeff, Cousin Joe, Cousin Steph, Cousin Kate, and on and on and on. But Annie was still the best cousin. So we've met many more cousins, right? She and Henry and Mudge played frisbee with some aunts and uncles, grandpas and grandmas. So now we know that there are more aunts, there are uncles, grandpas, and grandmas. Aunt Sally gave Mudge a cracker each time he caught the frisbee. When they got tired, Henry and Annie and Mudge went to Annie's room. Annie showed Henry her collections of lace hankies and china teacups. Not very exciting, thought Henry. Then Annie showed him her submarine game. Wow, said Henry. He and Annie played submarines while Mudge slept on the canopy bed. Annie thought Mudge looked cute on her pink frilly bed. After Mudge's nap, they all went back to the reunion. They played more games and had more fun and climbed more trees. Then at the end of the day, it was time to say goodbye. Henry shook 1,000,000 hands and got 1,000,000 hugs, and everyone said, "What a fine dog you have, Henry." Henry was proud. Cousins and aunts and uncles and grandpas and grandmas were great to have. But Mudge would always be the best family of all. Wasn't that a great story? I just love that story. So raise your hand if you have ever been to a family reunion. Not every family has them. My family used to have them every 5 years or so. We haven't had one in a long time. But it's always so much fun to go to a family reunion because you get to meet family members that you've never met before and see family members that you haven't seen in a long time. Now, some families are really big and some families are really small. Let's think about all of the different family members that we met along the way in the Henry and Mudge book. Can you name as many relatives as you can think of across your fingers? You don't have to remember their actual names, but you can just say like mom, dad, dog, cousins, and on and on. Okay, see how many you can name. Ready, set, go. All right, time's up. I got up to 8. Let's see if you had the same as me. I said mom, dad. We didn't meet actually a brother or sister. We'll get back to that list in just a minute. Before we get to that list, let's think of just the ones from the book. So there was a mom, a dad, a dog. Dog's a part of your family, right? If you have a dog. There were cousins, there were aunts. There were uncles, there were grandmas and grandpas. So I counted 8 different relatives, okay? But there can be even more family members than that. Can you think of any other family members that there might be in a family in addition to the ones that we just named? See if you could come up with some more. Go ahead and say them across your fingers. Ready, set, go. All right, time's up. So let's look now. I have this list of relatives that could be in a family. Let's see. We have mom, dad, brother, sister, cousins, aunts, uncles, grandmothers, grandfathers, great-grandmothers, great-grandfathers. If you're really lucky, then you have a great-grandmother and a great-grandfather. Stepmother, stepfather, foster mother, foster father. There can be so many different relatives in a family. Now, I want you to think about the relatives in your own family. Try to choose one of your favorite relatives, somebody that you really, really like. I wonder who Henry would have chosen. Who do you think Henry would choose? Call it out in 3, 2, 1. Did you say Mudge? Yeah, I thought maybe Henry would choose Mudge because remember at the end of the story, here, let me pull it up. At the end of the story here, he said, but Mudge would always be the best family of all. So that made me think that maybe Mudge was his favorite family member. But he also really likes his cousin Annie too, so maybe he would write about her. So think of a relative that you really love being around. Someone who makes you smile, someone who maybe plays with you, someone who's always kind. And I want you to choose that one family member from your family to draw and write about. So think of who that family member is. Touch your head when you have an idea. If it were, let's see, who would I choose? I would choose my cousin Joe. So I would write here in this sentence, I would write, this is my cousin. And now I would write the name. It says name of relative. I would write his name, Joe. Then I would draw a picture of what he looks like here in this space. Then let's see, it says my blank is blank years old. My cousin is 34 years old. And then I would write my sentence here about him. I like my cousin because he makes me laugh and travels with me. That's what I would write. Okay, you have to decide what you would like to write about one of your relatives. Now, please pause the video here as you work on this activity sheet. Once you are all finished with your activity sheet, you can come back to listen to another book. It's called What Makes a Family? Make sure to pause here, finish your activity sheet, and then come back when you're all done to listen to this book. Welcome back, first graders. Did you finish your activity sheet? Double thumbs up if you did. Great job. I cannot wait to hear about your family members. So now we have another book that we can listen to. It's called What Makes a Family? To listen to this book, please click on the blue button up in the top right-hand corner. If you toggle your mouse over the screen, a blue button should appear. You'll click on that. It was great learning with you today. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and keep on learning. Bye-bye.